Today, we are exposing the 5 supermarket staples that are about to disappear from Australian shelves because of a massive, hidden vulnerability in our food supply chain. Stay with me to the end, because I'm going to show you exactly why this is happening right now in 2026, and the 2 emergency-proof food categories you need to stock up on before the next wave of panic buying hits. For decades, Australians have taken the supermarket for granted. We walk in, we see endless shelves of fresh milk, cheap mints, and perfectly ripe fruit. We have been told our food supply is incredibly secure because we grow enough food to feed 75 million people. But here is the terrifying part nobody talks about. Australia might grow the food, but we do not have the fuel to move it. Right now, Australia imports about 90% of its refined liquid fuel, particularly diesel. Our entire food system, from the tractor harvesting the crop, to the refrigerated truck driving it across the country, to the backup generators powering the cool rooms, runs entirely on imported diesel. With escalating geopolitical conflict, like the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, global oil prices have spiked and diesel supply chains to Australia are buckling. Farmers are currently being cut off by independent wholesalers. Fishing fleets are stranded at the docks in Queensland. And with national reserves hovering around just 32 days of diesel, the National Farmers Federation is warning that this has escalated from a logistics headache into a genuine threat to our food system. If the trucks stop, the supermarket shelves empty in 3 days. This is a systemic failure of our just-in-time delivery model. Let us pull back the curtain on the 5 specific foods that will vanish first, and why you are completely exposed. Number 1, fresh milk, the 24-hour supply chain trap. We view fresh milk as an absolute, undeniable basic right in Australia. You go to the dairy aisle, and it is always full. But dairy is arguably the most fragile supply chain in the country right now. The National Farmers Federation has just issued a dire warning, pointing out that industries like dairy need fuel to move product every single day. The entire dairy industry is built on a massive, constant rotation of diesel-powered milk tankers driving to regional farms, collecting the milk and rushing it to processing plants before it spoils. If independent fuel retailers cannot supply diesel to those regional transport companies, those trucks simply do not run. The milk stays on the farm and has to be dumped. Within 48 hours, the supermarket fridges for brands like Dairy Farmers, Paul's, and supermarket home brands will be totally empty. So why is this a problem? Because we have optimized our dairy industry for efficiency, not resilience. There is zero slack in the system. You are relying on a continuous, uninterrupted flow of imported diesel to ensure your family has milk for breakfast. The government assures us we have enough diesel for our needs. But the dairy industry's reality is, if milk tankers stop running because fuel is unavailable or unaffordable, farmers face serious animal health and environmental consequences, and supermarkets will run dry. If you think milk is vulnerable, wait until you hear what is happening to the meat aisle. Number 2, fresh poultry and pork, the refrigerated nightmare. Chicken and pork are the backbone of the Australian weekly dinner menu. We consume massive amounts of fresh poultry, but here is where things get genuinely uncomfortable. The National Farmers Federation has explicitly warned that the current diesel shortages pose a massive animal welfare risk, specifically highlighting poultry growers who need fuel to maintain the health of their birds. Chicken farms require constant, intense temperature control. They rely on diesel generators to run the massive fans and heating systems in the sheds. If a farm runs out of diesel, they can lose an entire shed of birds in a matter of hours. Beyond the farm, almost 90% of Australian fresh produce and meat is transported using refrigerated trucks. Refrigerated transport burns significantly more diesel than regular freight because the engine is not just moving the truck, it is constantly running the massive cooling units on the trailer. When fuel prices hit over $3 a litre in regional areas and supply is rationed, transport companies are forced to park their trucks. If a refrigerated truck does not move, that fresh chicken breast never makes it from the processing plant in regional New South Wales to the Coles in Sydney. What does that actually mean for your plate? It means the fresh meat section, the products with a 5-day use-by date, will be the first to be stripped bare by panic buyers and the slowest to be restocked. The supermarket illusion is endless supplies of fresh, cheap Australian chicken. The fragile reality is a highly vulnerable cold chain that collapses the moment diesel rationing hits regional transport hubs. Because what you're about to hear changes the way you look at fresh produce entirely. Number 3, perishable fruits and vegetables rotting in the paddock. We love buying fresh Australian tomatoes, berries and leafy greens. But the fresh produce section is completely at the mercy of the current fuel crisis. Right now, farmers are trying to harvest summer crops and plant winter crops. Politicians and regional leaders are sounding the alarm, warning that if farmers cannot access diesel, they cannot harvest crops, plant crops, or move food and fibre to market. Farmers are reporting being cut off from bulk diesel deliveries by major wholesalers because independent retailers rely on the spot market for supplies. For massive agricultural machinery, running low on fuel means the tractor stops and the crop rots in the paddock. Even if they manage to harvest it, the cost of moving perishable goods like fruit and veg is skyrocketing. Trucking companies are warning that for every 5 cents fuel goes up, they have to charge customers significantly more just to keep their doors open. Industry experts are warning that the combined cost of the farmer's fuel and the transport fuel could drive the price of perishable fruit and veg up by 40 to 50%. So why is this a problem? Because long-haul diesel trucks are the lifeblood of Australian fresh produce. We do not have a massive freight rail network that connects every farm to every city. When the trucks stop, or when the freight costs double, supermarkets will simply not stock highly perishable items because the margins disappear. The marketing suggests fresh food, people. But underneath, the truth is without affordable diesel, that fresh food never leaves the regional farm. And if you think relying on local farms is risky, wait until you see what happens to the imported aisles. Number 4. Imported pantry staples, the shipping lane gridlock. Walk down the middle aisles of Woolworths or Coles. The pasta, the tinned tomatoes, the cheap olive oil, the coffee, the rice. We assume these dry goods are safe because they are not perishable, but the fuel crisis is a two-front war. The conflict in the Middle East has not just spiked the price of oil, it has severely disrupted major shipping routes, particularly the flow of container ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Major shipping companies are facing massive delays, carrier-level embargoes, and soaring freight surcharges. Supply chain analysts are warning that Australian businesses relying on just-in-time inventory models for imported goods are facing the worst freight disruption since COVID. When international shipping lanes choke, those middle aisles empty out. We do not grow enough domestic coffee or rice to meet our massive national demand. The cheap Italian pasta and the imported canned goods rely on smooth, cheap ocean freight. What does this mean for your body and your budget? It means the cheap high-calorie staples you rely on to feed your family during a cost of living crisis are going to vanish, or the prices will double as retailers try to cover the massive freight surcharges. On the surface, it looks like plenty of cheap imported staples. The reality is a gridlocked ocean freight system that is going to cut off our access to basic global commodities. And finally, the most shocking shortage of all. Number 5. Fresh Australian seafood. Grounded at the docks, Australia is surrounded by ocean. We have some of the best seafood in the world, but as Easter approaches, the fresh seafood counter is facing a catastrophic collapse. Right now, on the Sunshine Coast, fishing fleets are literally immobilized at the docks. There is no diesel available at the Mooloolaba wharf for fishers. Commercial fishing trawlers burn thousands of liters of diesel just to get out to the fishing grounds and keep their massive freezers running. With diesel prices reportedly surging past $3 a litre at the docks, and physical shortages preventing them from filling up, the boats cannot leave the port. So why is this a massive issue? Because fresh fish has an incredibly short shelf life. If the boats do not go out, there is zero buffer. The government claims we have 32 days of liquid diesel supply. Yet days into this crisis, entire primary industries are coming to a standstill. When you go to buy fresh flathead or prawns, you're going to find empty ice beds or prices that are absolutely astronomical because the supply has fallen off a cliff. The branding says fresh catch of the day. The reality is the boats are tied up because Australia did not secure its fuel reserves. Escalation and pattern reveal. Do you see the terrifying pattern here? We have built an entire national food system that is completely dependent on a single imported commodity, diesel. The dairy farmers need it to milk the cows and transport the liquid. The poultry farmers need it to keep the chickens alive. The crop farmers need it to harvest the vegetables. The refrigerated trucks need it to keep the meat from rotting. The fishing boats need it to leave the dock. Australia only holds around 32 days of diesel in reserve, well below international mandates. When global conflicts choke the supply, the pain hits our farmers first, the truck drivers second, and the supermarket shelves third. This is not a conspiracy. This is basic supply chain mathematics. So how do you protect your family when the trucks stop running? Now let us talk about the Australian options that are actually worth your time. You cannot rely on the supermarket's just-in-time delivery model during a fuel crisis. You need to build your own buffer. Here are two essential categories you need to stock up on right now before the panic buying completely clears the shelves. 1. Shelf-stable domestic proteins. When the refrigerated trucks stop, fresh meat disappears. You need protein that does not require a cold chain. Stock up on Australian-made canned tuna, canned salmon, and high-quality canned beans like chickpeas and lentils. Look for locally produced long-life meats like jerky or biltong. These items do not require diesel-powered refrigeration to sit in your pantry, meaning they are immune to power blackouts and cold chain collapses. 2. Long-life dairy alternatives and grains. When the milk tankers cannot collect fresh milk, the dairy aisle goes empty. Buy Australian-produced UHT long-life milk or high-quality milk powders. Pair this with domestic grains. Australia produces massive amounts of oats and wheat. Buy large, bulk bags of rolled oats and Australian flour. These are calorically dense, they store for months, and they provide a massive safety net when the fresh bakery and dairy sections are stripped bare. Final message and call to action. Australian food culture has drifted dangerously far into a false sense of security. We believed that because we grow the food, we would always have the food. But we forgot that without diesel, a tomato on a farm in Queensland is useless to a family living in Melbourne. The current fuel crisis is exposing exactly how fragile our system really is. You do not have to panic, but you do need to prepare. Stop relying entirely on the supermarket to feed you day by day. Start building a resilient pantry with shelf-stable, locally produced foods that do not rely on refrigerated trucks to survive. If this video opened your eyes to the massive vulnerability hiding in our supermarkets, tap the like button so more Australians can wake up and prepare. If you want to stay ahead of the supply chain crisis and protect your family's plate, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the mainstream news will not tell you until the shelves are already empty. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you noticed the fuel prices impacting your local supermarket yet? What is the first item you are going to stock up on this week? Let me know below.